Good morning, if you're watching this in the morning. Otherwise, good afternoon, good evening. I'm George Buchan from George Buchan Consulting. I know it's not the most original of names, but Swiss bureaucracy likes things to match the paperwork, so here we are. Anyway, this won't take long, but it's also not an Insta shot. So you might want to grab a coffee, give these adenosine receptors something to do here. Full sentences. There's no dopamine loops going on here. So, I'm a psychology and well-being consultant. And after my master's in psychology, I decided not to be a psychologist. I don't do diagnosis. This is deliberate, though. It's aligned to the vows that I took in my personal life. And these vows to reduce other people's suffering. When I speak about vows, I don't mean it metaphorically. They're real commitments taken in Tibetan and translated into French. And so my goal, what is it? It's to help people before the break, before the diagnosis. Suffering, it's entirely human. We know that. The problem though, it's its duration. We tend to wait and we live with it. And our family and friends also live with it until we can't. And it's the same pattern again and again for people, companies, organizations. It's almost always the same deal. And this is why I come in before the break, before things get too heavy, because I don't want you to have to hit burnout, hit depression, become completely overstressed, get completely underwater first. There's no stigma in coming to see me. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You don't have to say to yourself or anyone else, man, I'm seeing a psychologist. Seeing a psychology and well-being consultant, though, that hits a little bit different. Because here, you're not coming to me and saying, I'm broken, fix me. You're coming in saying, something could be better, maybe much better, and I'd like to understand it. I'd like to become it. So with me, we're talking about potential. We're not talking about pathology. So now for your due diligence part, because let's be honest, well-being, positive psychology, all this stuff, new coach types, it's popping up everywhere these days. It's like coaches like Pokemon, but less trained most of the time. Me though, I got a bachelor's in sociology, 3 years in psychology with that, with honours. I got a master's in strategic studies, and I also got a master's in psychology. And here I focused on subjective well-being and my own theory of non-avoidance, and I got a distinction for that, so that was pretty cool. Otherwise, I've also taught adults for more than 10 years. I've run my own ethical company. I've worked in sales, in insurance, and client relations. And most of my 18-year career, maybe a bit more actually, it's been in Geneva. And so all my workshops, my classes, client work, it's all in English. Et en français, oui. En fait, j'enseigne tous mes cours de psychologie en français, donc il n'y a aucun souci les francophones. So if you're curious about psychology, maybe about yourself, here's what I offer. An identity detox program. This one is very cool actually. It's a one-to-one deep dive into who you really are. It's beneath all the conditioning, all the job descriptions, the life stresses, and it's a 6-step program with 2 free detox sessions where you tell me all about yourself, what you're looking for, and I use these 2 initial sessions for analysis of information, recurring themes, goals, motivations, similar to a needs analysis. And so here, basically, we're unraveling the psychological map of where you are and where you'd like to be, and also, obviously, how you're going to get there. I also do corporate well-being, and here, most of the time, we're looking at PsyCap, psychological capital. Not exclusively, but PsyCap, it's proven and it's a measurable model, and we're looking at hope, we're looking at efficacy, resilience, and optimism in your workplace. What is it really though? It's kind of like your organization's invisible balance sheet, except instead of counting money, we're counting meaning. We're counting energy, and if optimism is present, or if optimism's working from home today, teletrabajo. So, how do I do this? Well, I start with both qualitative and quantitative research, because stories matter. But, as we know, so do questionnaires and spreadsheets. We map how things are actually going and decide what's worth measuring. because what gets measured usually ends up in an email to HR. Then, based on what I find, we put a plan in place to strengthen your PsyCap, and with it, your in-house communications and your relational dynamics. Yes, it improves productivity. Yes, it improves engagement. Studies say it, meta-analysis say it. We know this. And honestly, even your coffee machine probably understands that by now. But PsyCap, it also helps people feel human again, capable of meaning, capable of growth, capable of possibility. And it's probably the most universal workplace goal that there is. To do good work, to feel alive doing it, and to find some meaning in the process. In my 20 years experience, 20 plus, across different industries, and these grey hairs, by the way, that's the data, I've never met anyone who says meaning, progress, development, no thanks. I'll take 40 hours a week of mild existential dread, with a side of anxiety. Probably also some Sunday night chest tightness, please. Doesn't happen. So can organizational and human needs meet meaningfully? Of course they can. We just have to recalibrate the system a little bit so that people feel less like they're surviving at work and more like they belong there. I also have an expat wellbeing program. This one's personal. I've lived this one. And you can tell I say this as a native English speaker with a Scottish accent, but now also as a Swiss citizen. So thanks for adopting me, Switzerland. I know being an expat isn't just exciting, cosmopolitan, it's also destabilizing. You lose your old systems of meaning, your old sense of competence, your sense of confidence, your old routines, even your usual supermarket. It's gone. It's not there anymore. It's a strange cocktail of adventure, identity crisis, topped off with a stack of admin in a language probably you don't understand either. So, what does this program do? Well, it helps you deal with all the uncertainty that you're feeling, the loss of structure, the recurring what am I doing here moments, which are inevitably buzzing around your head like a busted fridge. The work then, what do? We work on recalibration. It's recalibration of stability, recalibration of confidence, of independence, and where you can find social support. All these things, they are key to subjective well-being. Across these three programs, the questions we explore, they're deep, but they're simple. Probably deceptively simple, as you'll see. So what are they? Where's your balance really at? How do you define balance? Is it working for you? What psychological weight can we just let go of? What about the word better? What does better actually mean? What does it mean for you? Did you define it? Authenticity. What does that look like in real life? Because we always hear about being authentic, but do you really know what that looks like? Authenticity, it only comes from the kind of inner work where you really, really question who you think you are. And you earn your answers. You can't hashtag your way to self-awareness. Lastly, I'm also a psychology teacher. I teach psychology at professional schools, for companies, general adult learning settings. So what do I teach? I teach basic psychological theories and their applications, subjective well-being, stress, depression, communications, and some other subjects. My teaching certificate, though, it says adult learners only. Sorry, kids, but honestly, suits everybody involved. I'm also working with a tech startup in psychology, by the way, but I signed an NDA for that. So how do I do all this? Well, my approach, it mixes behavioral and humanist psychology, and also a touch of Eastern philosophy. There's behavioral psychology me, and that's me in a suit and a tie, maybe a tie, observing the patterns and the data. There's humanist psychology me, who's actively listening to you with unconditional positive regard. And here we're looking at the signposts, trying to find directions through your story. Eastern philosophy guy, lurking in the background a little bit. He's here because it was there where I saw what you can do when you mix stillness and psychology, when they start to overlap. Well beyond the textbook stuff, but very cool. The key to understanding my work, though, is basically this. Everything until now is formative but not deterministic. Formative but not deterministic. Our histories, they shape our patterns of perceptions, our emotions, our behaviors through repetition and conditioning. We know this, but awareness can transcend them. With conscious understanding and a little bit of guidance, we can interrupt the momentum of old formations, this developmental autopilot, which a lot of us are on, and we can create a more authentic way of being, a more authentic way of being you. The fact that something's been learned doesn't make it essential to who you are. Awareness, that's not bound by habit. It's the space in which transformation can become possible. The self's not a fixed construct. And the moment you really understand that, that's when you're knocking at the door of freedom and authenticity. So my approach is very, very human. And I find that most people, they don't need more motivation. They need less distortion. So we tend to get lost. Lost in what? Lost in our job titles, our roles, our expectations. We live in systems that tell us to be endlessly productive, polished, permanently available. To who? To our bosses, to our inboxes, to our families, and to our WhatsApp groups. Underneath all this, we start running on that autopilot. We tend to get tired, maybe overstimulated, but we get disconnected from ourselves and also from others. And in this blur, it's really easy to forget that all we are, we're just human beings meeting each other with the same laughs, the same hopes, the same worries, all looking for the same simple things to feel safe, to be happy, to suffer a little bit less. So why choose me? It's a magic question, no? Well, in a nutshell, academic excellence, experience, compassion, integrity. The last two, though, compassion and integrity, not negotiable. Me, I've lived a lot of what I teach and I work with. And I know from the inside, I know what it means to fall apart bit by bit and consciously watch that happen. But I also know how to rebuild. I know how to find growth, meaning, service, connection. I also know most of us, we're really just trying to make sense of things. We're doing our best with what we have, and underneath it all, we just want some happiness and some security. For who? For ourselves, for our families. Even if you're the CEO or the head of HR, we're all the same. So me, I work with data, pragmatism, and trust. That's the numbers, the practice, and the people. We can run stats, algorithms, and checklists and stuff on each other. We cannot connect through metrics. Behind every result, there's a person. All complex, imperfect, just trying to find balance. I'm not only the sum of my qualifications and experience, neither are you. This right here, though, that's where the real work begins. If you need to reach out, I'll meet you there. A question can be held like a hand or held like a weapon. For me, always a hand. So if you laughed or smiled at least twice during all of this, congratulations, you've just been behaviorally reinforced. So, all done. Now I'm just going to fade out into the logo and the contact details like every other consultant.